The tabletop takeaway.
Game mechanics on display.
3 designers share the stage.
Pick a genre and we'll play.
The tabletop takeaway.
So welcome to our third chapter in our tile placement series. My name's Charlie McCarran.
I'm Trevor Muller-Hagel.
And I'm Ananda Gunaratna.
Yeah, and for this episode, I chose the game Galaxy Trucker because I had so many fond memories of this game. And it's one of the craziest tile placement games you'll play, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 phases to this game. You are acting as the builder of a ship that you're going to be sending across space to try to gather cargo, fight against smugglers and other things, dodge asteroids, and so on. And so imagine a big table full of tiles that are face down. And the first phase of the game is real time. So you're picking tiles and flipping them over and deciding to add them to your grid on your personal board, which is going to become your ship. And all the tiles have little connectors, and you have to make sure that connections match up. And you're adding things like gun turrets, engines, space for crew, and other lots of miscellaneous things. And then once everyone's done building their ship, we move into the space flight phase. And you're flipping over a deck, and different things happen. Like I said, maybe asteroids hit your ship from a different angle. And you win. A lot of the times you're rolling dice to see which area of your ship gets hit. And if you built your ship well, you'll be able to have those asteroids bounce off. But, you know, other things, there's a lot to this game that we won't go into everything. But that's the basic overview of the game.
What a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good game, and it does a lot of things which I don't see other games do. For example, the victory condition. Technically, if you make at least 1 credit, you win. The game says everyone who makes any credits is a winner, but you know some people are a little bit more of a winner than others. Which
it sets you up for realizing that we might get negative points because our ship explodes completely.
Yeah. But it's really great because like if you're playing with kids or something, you can easily just say everyone wins, and you know, it's in the rule book. And if you have a competitive group, then maybe you focus more on some people are more winners than others. It's a little like party games where, you know, there's technically a goal, but everyone ignores it. So it's sort of like the reverse of that. You know, technically everyone wins, but if you want, you can ignore that and just say whoever got the most credits won. Mm-hmm. And also, it's just amazingly fun to lose this game. Like, it is more fun to lose Galaxy Trucker than any other game. Lose in the sense of your ship being blown up, because just seeing how your ship falls apart is absolutely hilarious, and I have not seen that in any other game.
Yeah, that was one thing I was thinking about with this game that speaks to my style as a designer, I think, because I realized, like, I really love making a plan that you just see how it unfolds. Because, and often in games I don't really care if I win or lose that much, even though I am competitive. But this one's just fun, like you said, to see what happens with it. And that's, I think, like why I'm drawn to deck builders too, and other games like this where you make the whole plan. You can't do anything about that plan so much mid-game, and then you just see what happens.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the things this game really does well is interlacing comedy into almost every aspect of it, from the rule book down to even your ship falling apart randomly because it got hit in just the wrong spot. You lost the entire left half of your ship, which almost happened to Charlie earlier. Yeah. And it was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it has the funniest rule book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I will say on that point of your ship exploding, this play was a little disappointing because my one special power blue alien card like immediately got blown up on the first thing that happened.
Yeah, that's tough. And yes, sometimes when you have this level of variance and stuff going on, you're going to have those kind of like, well, that was a rough one, but you just make a new ship.
But yeah, it's still
again.
It's still so much fun to see what happens.
Yeah,
the game really does a good job of letting you express your creativity.
Oh yeah.
Because how you build the ship is really up to you, and different people are going to focus on different things. My favorite archetype is the Nope ship. If you're facing a bunch of enemies, you just put a bunch of hyperspace boosters. This is the first edition, the remake. I think they changed how hyperspace boosters work. But in the original game, you have these hyperspace boosters that just blow up your engines, and then you avoid the next two encounters, and you just nope. Yep.
Yeah.
Just nope.
Yeah.
Nope out of there.
So I will say, I think the more fun games of this are when your ship does start exploding, and I noticed Ananda's ship this time was perfectly intact.
So my ships usually do very well because. So one thing about Galaxy Trucker is it does a really good job of letting players climb the heuristic tree. So in characteristics of games, Richard Garfield introduces this idea of the heuristic tree, where you want to give players an obvious strategy, a zero-level heuristic that they can latch onto in their first game, and then every game that they play, they try new strategies, they try things that are a little bit more advanced, and they slowly climb up this tree of heuristics or strategies, and get better and better, and like this keeps them coming back. And so one of my favorite example of this in Galaxy Trucker is the game tells you lose if you have no crew. So the obvious heuristic, if you're a new player and are overwhelmed by all the options, is just build lots of crew cabins. But then, because you build crew cabins and put some of them next to each other, you run into the epidemic card, which punishes you for having adjacent crew cabins. And so then you learn the lesson, okay, I should build crew cabins, but I should never put them next to each other. And it's just all these sorts of things where you try a strategy and then the game teaches you some new thing to incorporate later. And I mean, you can get really good at Galaxy Trucker.
I believe it. Yeah, and I haven't played in probably 5 years, so we just went through a little playthrough to remind ourselves how it works. And looking at all of these different types of tokens out here, like I know about what a third of them maybe do, but I was able to make intelligent decisions still, even though I haven't played in so long, and I haven't played that much to begin with. And there's still like significant choices I make the entire time. And if you're thinking about game design as a series of choices the players make, even though it's real time, you're like, okay, well, what am I going to spend my time doing? What am I going to do? How do I go about that? And it's just a rapid fire, you're going through it, and it's kind of chaos, which is exactly like what they want. They want to feel like you're under that pressure, so that when you go to do the flight, it's like, okay, well, how did I actually do? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I had one critique of the game, I think it is like the fun part is building, and then it is fun seeing like how your ship does, but it feels like the flight portion of the game, especially in later rounds, gets really quite long.
It does,
and complicated. Of like, well, what's this rule gonna do? But I mean, yeah, I don't know what I would do differently in trying to figure out how to make your ship really matter. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the length of the rounds, yeah. Each round increases. I think it's like it increases the number of cards in the deck by 4.
Oh wow!
I want to say. Yeah. So, like a class 4 journey just takes ages. Yeah. So probably, yeah, they could be shorter. Actually, one thing that I really like about the ship construction, this is sort of a little bit what you were talking about, Trevor, is if you're a new player and you don't know what anything does, the really nice thing is because of the connector system, you can always build your ship based on what the connectors are, even if you have no idea what the pieces do. Just like okay, what can I put down that will have solid connections that are unlikely to break? And then when the flight happens, you can see what those pieces do, and then you learn a little bit about the game.
Yeah,
it's like there's 2 layers to each piece, right? There's what it does, and then it's the connections,
how it fits.
Yes, and even if you can't engage with what it does, you can always engage with how it connects to other pieces.
That's half of what I did. Honestly, is like I remembered batteries being important for shields, and that was about the extent of what I remembered. You want lasers going forward mostly, engines going backward, but outside of that, like, oh yeah, this fits here. Oh look, this got a triple connector. That's great. And I knew I wanted storage. So yeah, and that's enough information, and you get that from the graphic design alone, which is super helpful to like, okay, I know I need these things, and they need to go that direction because you don't want to have your thrusters in front of your ship and your missiles behind. That makes logical sense.
Yeah. And I do like the arc of the game in that you start with a tiny ship in the first round, and then you get to like a little bigger ship, and then one that has like a shape of the Starship Enterprise, so it can be destroyed if your middle section is broken.
Oh.
But yeah, that piece is fun.
Yeah. And then you get to all the Class B ships, which have all sorts of wacky rules. Like, ships that are a Taurus, or the super unlucky ship where no matter what you roll in the die, it'll hit one of the columns or rows.
Oh man.
There's so much content in this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of going back a little bit to our last episode with Carcassonne, where you have this more expandable game. We're seeing it still here, and I think tile laying games, I'm starting to get this feel that you're more able to expand those with new tiles.
Yeah, definitely. In Galaxy Trucker, the expansions mostly add in new tiles, but then they also add in new events. Like my favorite is the Commando and the Predator, where these aliens board your ship and start wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
Well, and just when we played with that earlier, just the logic of how that works, I'm like, that's hilarious. How this is going through my ship, and I just got to trace. Okay, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Oh man, he went to that spot. That's a weak spot.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Yeah.
Almost half of my ship got destroyed until Ananda nicely reminded me that I have this rocket booster that lets me
go into hyperspace
and
avoid
escape.
all conflict.
Yeah. But I do remember thinking, I think I played with Commandos in my first game ever, and that was the moment where I was like, oh, this game is hilarious, because you're just seeing ship pieces get blown off, and that to me is more fun than the one at a time, like things getting destroyed.
Just an asteroid here, asteroid there, cannon. Oh man, there's a commando.
Yeah. No, I am always amazed by Galaxy Trucker's ability to make losing fun. I think if you can do that for your game, you're set.
Yeah.
Well,
the one design question I think about is like, well, I do like those kind of games personally where things can go completely wrong and in a funny way. But like, I feel like a lot of gamers really, when they built something, they don't want it to be destroyed. So like engine builder games, I don't know how to. It's definitely a different crowd.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is a slightly longer tile placement game than the other two we've looked at so far. And I think some of that investment's in there still, where you're playing these tiles down and you're creating something, and then there's potential for it to be destroyed. So you're trying to create something that has the least chances of being destroyed, but you don't have full control over that. So yeah, it's an interesting little challenge, but you don't really know if you're the first time you're playing it. You're kind of going blind.
Yeah, and I think this is one place where the framing probably helps a lot, because the whole game is framed in such a way as to make your ship's destruction seem like, okay,
that's
right?
fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just need to earn 1 credit to win.
Do you still have a crew? You're still going.
Yeah. And the ships are insured, so there's a limit to how much you can even lose.
Yeah.
Right.
And the theme itself, too. I mean, like if this was, you're building a city and it's going to get destroyed by barbarians coming in and attacking, like, I mean, that actually still could be interesting, I guess.
I kind of want to make that game now. Why did you say that? Oh, no.
Yeah. But the idea that you're in space and little pieces of your ship get blown off just makes people probably more okay with just, oh, well, that tile's gone now.
Well, here we go. Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, and like Ananda was saying earlier, like, you know, if you come out positive with money, you have won. And so the low barrier to winning combined with the fun of losing means you rarely will have like a truly negative experience with the game, which I think is a huge benefit for it. You know, it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, should we move into our game designer takeaways?
We absolutely can.
Who's got one first?
I will go first. So, my big takeaway is that you can combine real-time with turn-based in the same game. And it's a really interesting way that they've handled it. I normally don't think real-time, and I normally think real-time is much more of either a dexterity game or, you know, something that really challenges your perception as you're, like, trying to hurriedly go through something or do something. But this, like, yeah, you do that for a while, but then you stop. And then you have this kind of respite where you're kind of seeing how it played out and seeing if you made good decisions. So I really like that switch from being this one thing into almost a different game. But it keeps it all feeling that same, like, lighthearted feel. And you know what? You made decisions while you're going fast. Hopefully it pays off.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And the second half of the game, you really don't make many decisions.
There's very few decisions to be made.
Yeah. Which does keep it light. So that's...
Yeah. I mean, I would say for me, I think one big takeaway is just with the way that the construction of the ship works. If you have a tile placement game where you combine simple mechanics on each tile that people can use to decide where to put it, with complex mechanics governing what the tile does, in the way that Galaxy Trucker does with the connections, which are easy to understand, and then the abilities of the tiles, which are a bit harder, that makes it really easy to pick up, because people can just focus on the simple aspects of the tile until they understand what the tiles do. Assuming, of course, that you're rewarding them for building good connections. But I think just having those two layers of the simple layer and the complex layer that are both important for building your ship or building whatever. I think that's really important for making the game accessible.
Yeah, and it's pervasive throughout the design, right? So like it's every tile, you know, you have those connectors, you have that tile ability, and that's super important.
Yeah, you don't need to know what any of the tiles do except maybe like the engines and crew cabins to build a ship.
Yeah, the core of the game. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me the takeaway is about how I always think of this game as an example of how theme and mechanics can be really combined. And this one, we haven't mentioned this, but all of these tile laying games we've talked about, there's no text pretty much anywhere on the table.
Yeah, the only text I think are numbers.
Just numbers.
And 5C max. Yeah. Minus 5C.
Yep.
5 credits.
And I really, that's one of my design philosophies too, is can I make this work visually without much text and still a lot of depth to it. And I think this works so well because, yeah, like you said, you can see that the engines should go backwards. You can see that the gun should go forward. And then pretty much every card you interact with, you can kind of guess what it's going to require. Like, okay, if you can shoot the pirates, even the cards themselves I don't think have much text.
Mostly a name, I think.
Yeah. You'll still have to look it up in the rules. There's plenty of things to know, but yeah, that's my takeaway.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a really interesting game, and I remember the first time I played it just being kind of blown away at how simple and deep it is, which is very similar to the other two as well. More so Carcassonne, where you have that kind of depth from very simple mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I think that wraps up our tile placement series of 3, except we may do another episode next time about tile placement itself as
a bonus episode.
A little bonus, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening.
Come back next time.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Tabletop Takeaway. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So please tell your friends and visit our website at thetabletoptakeaway.com, where you can suggest games and mechanics for us to cover next on the show.